indivisible. Christie, could you call the roll, please?
Jeff Swanky,
Here.
Fred Winton,
Here.
Paul Bukowski,
Here.
Jackie Marks. Here. John Mouse.
Present.
Everyone's here, thank you. Chief, any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any amendments, but I do have an announcement if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
All right, so we have a distinct crowd here. If you recall, today is Administrative Professional Day, so we wanted to make sure we don't have all of them, but we have a number of them. We wanted to take advantage of the opportunity with the board's presence to recognize them for all that they do to keep us in line and keep us moving forward. So from the board, from the executive staff, from all the members, we greatly appreciate what you guys do for us. And like I said, keeping us in line and moving us forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
Thank you. Words and presentations, Chief? None? Okay. This will take us to public comment, and so we have a pretty good sized public here. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment? No?
They're all eating cookies.
Is that why we bring cookies? Yeah. Anybody online, Cheryl? Okay. Thank you for being here, everyone. We appreciate it. It's always good to see our firefighters here involved. Thanks for all you do. Okay, that'll take us to our consent agenda. The only thing I see in there is minutes. Any changes that anybody'd like to see, please advise. Otherwise, I'd like to have a motion to accept.
So moved.
For a second?
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. That will take us into our regular agenda. And we're fortunate to have a celebrity among us, retiree Chris Class. It's always good to see you and have you here. It's been a big part of this department going way back to Moses. So we're gonna turn it over to you.
Moses.
Well, thank you. As Chairman said, I'm Chris Class. I am a retired member and on the Volunteer Firefighter Pension Board. In November, I was here seeking your approval for an increase of benefits, which you approved, and we thank you very much for doing that. Within your handout, there should be a sheet that you don't have to look up, but it's an update of the financial. The state was a little bit slow in putting out its financial information. We got it towards the end of March, and so I'm here to give you that update. Because a couple of the members maybe weren't here last year when I did a brief introduction, I have just a couple of bullets to give you. So the board members, our senior member is Andy Anderson, who's been here even longer than I have. Mark Miller, myself, Brad Hammonds, Doug Reckhammer, Kurt Wilson, and Lynn Stoffer are the current board members. The retirement fund is a closed fund. It has 49 firefighters and 14 spouses are receiving a benefit. The benefit ranges that you approved ranges from $400 to $800 a month. And that depends upon the years of service that they served. And it starts at 10 years of service. The spousal benefit ranges from $200 to $400, so they receive 50% of whatever their spouse had received. The financial part of it is the beginning balance in 2023 of the fund was $2,208,199. It ended at $2,178,189. The income that came into the fund was your contribution of $101,700 with a matching state contribution of $77,692. Last year's earnings were much better than the previous year, So our earnings last year was $214,970. So that created, at the end of the year, we only took out $30,000 from that original starting balance. The pension benefits, and this is based on what prior to the increase, but the pension benefits cost the fund in 2023, $384,709. Fees and expenses, the investment services from FPPA was $39,662. The return, as I said, last year ended up being a decent year at 9.97%. The 3-year annualized is 5.29, and the 5-year is 8.76. And there is, when a firefighter passes away, there is a $500 funeral benefit that is allotted to them. The only other thing that I don't have on here that we did receive a notice that we contract with FPPA, the Fire Police Pension Association, to do all the admin, and they're the ones who makes the payments and investments. Sometime later this year, we need to renew that agreement with them. And they sent us a notification that there's a form that we'll need to complete and send back to them to continue working with them. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions? So at last said that the state, the investment pool said, or their calculation was a 7% return, and they did make it this last year. Previously, they didn't the year before, but hopefully we're on track again this year to make our investments.
Those are great returns.
Anything else?
I'll
Thank you,
just
Chris.
comment on the subject of the affiliation agreement. We have a copy of that. And are reviewing it. We're reviewing it as a prorated legal advisement service, so pennies on the dollar to have that reviewed. But I do have some concerns with some of the new provisions that FPPA have included. And I'm in contact with them to see if we can revise it. So I sent a notice to chief. I'm sorry, I didn't know to copy you on it, but I said, please don't sign until I've got a chance to talk to FPPA, and then we'll be back in touch. So,
Okay,
yeah.
I'd be interested in, not now, but
Yeah,
at
no,
some point hearing what your
happy to sit down with you.
concerns.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is to receive an update from the chief regarding composition of the district unification steering committee. So chief?
All right, Mr. Chairman, if you turn to page 16, this is the proposed unification steering committee. I wanted it to be a little more aggressive like task force, but I was overruled, so. We'll do the unification steering committee. I think we got good representation here. I have reached out to everybody and have received confirmation of their interest, with the exception of the alternates. I know, Paul, you're looking at it. I'm assuming.
I'm always on your side, don't
All
worry.
right, so having said that, the chairman and I had a discussion yesterday. He would like to swap you to be the lead from the LFRA board, and then he would serve as the alternate. So that's the only change that I had. Unless anybody has any changes, additions. From the city attorney's side, obviously Vince is gonna be tied up, so he asked me to put Dylan and Dalton in there as his alternates.
It's just an edit, John, Jon, John Mallow instead of.
And that's my typo.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
No. It's someone who has their name misspelled regularly. I apologize.
Further conversation? Okay, we're not asked to do anything here, so we'll just move forward and look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would say is I was gonna work with Emily to start working on an agenda and some dates to meet, to get this kicked off sooner rather than later. I don't think we have to meet on, too many times, but the point is we gotta get it started. The clock is ticking for sure.
Chief?
Yes.
Question, so I'm assuming with the agenda, we're gonna have some milestones as well as an agenda, so.
The milestones fall right in line with what has been created by Emily. If you recall that all the milestones were on there, with a projection of May of 2020.
So specifically to the committee, the milestones will be applicable for their, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Emily, am I stating that?
You're
correctly?
right, and then, I mean, the first task of the committee is to start working through those places that there were holes in the pre-inclusion IGA, and let's start filling them in. What would typically happen is the unification committee would come up with a proposal, right, something that they think makes sense. I can draft it, and then we would bring it to this body, right, so everybody can see it and provide comment on it, but it at least gives us a place to start. And then we just start filling in those holes until it's done.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Chief, I'm gonna kick it right back to you to talk about briefing papers, correspondence, and I believe you have some information in there on the survey at the same time.
So. Take over, Cheryl. All right, I'll go through some of this relatively fast, but starting with something we do on a regular basis is the correspondence, and I added this is in addition to some of the things that may be listed in your packet because I just received some of these. First of which is Water and Power reaching out to us and giving us their thanks for our support. If you recall, we did a dive for them, saved significant amount of money for Water and Power. We did basically a dive training. Our staff went out there and assisted them. Had some sort of inspection of one of the tanks that a number of our folks contributed to. On the right, you probably recognize Renee Wheeler. Renee used to be both an employee for the city of Loveland as well as LFRA. She's given our thanks that responded to a small fire next to her house. So that was kind of nice. Not nice that they had a fire, but obviously our personnel doing what they do best. Then down in the center there is a friend of all of ours, Tom Kerrigan, had a medical emergency. If you recall that name, Tom's with Kids Pack, had a medical emergency. He's doing well. Our folks again responded to Tom's residence, took care of him. And then the lower right is actually a neighbor of mine and a former firefighter in California, Roseville, California. I'm sorry, Sac Metro in California had a medical emergency, and the crew from Station 3 again did what they do best and offered proper customer service. So. Next, we had our logistics technician. I know, Jim, it probably feels like we keep introducing you, but this is the other board I don't think that you've met. So Jim, you want to come up? And so Mayor and Councilor Mello and Rod, I don't think you've met Jim. Jim is our logistics support technician. So Captain Lyons leads the logistics section and Jim is his technician supporting that. So in charge of multiple millions of dollars of equipment that we have scattered throughout the community that we're trying to condense down and properly track. So you want to give a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Jim. I moved here in '97. Went to CSU here. Met my wife, decided to stay here in Colorado. Last 20 some years I've been doing construction as my day job. In the meantime, I also been a volunteer with the Glacier Fire Protection District up in Livermore for the last 14 years, where I'm currently the assistant chief of operations up there. Really excited to be here in Loveland, and everyone here has been great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, well,
So the advantage with Jim, obviously, his background in operations, hits the ground running. He didn't say that he also has a carpentry background. So that kind of supports us on the facility side as well. So, welcome to the family.
Tim, can I ask you a question too? So is there any new news on the collaboration with Front Range and Berthoud as far as using more of the facility? A month, if you have it later, yeah, okay, sorry.
There you go.
There's the answer.
All right, and to keep it in the family, many of you met Tyler. So Tyler is our wildfire program coordinator. He's a local guy and been engaged on the wildfire front for a number of years with multiple agencies. So I'll let him go ahead and start.
Chief said, Tyler. I've been in fire for, this is year 21 now for me. I've worked for the Forest Service, state of Colorado, a couple different fire department agencies, and currently work on one of the incident management teams for the region as a division supervisor. So hoping to bring that experience and knowledge and share it with the folks of LFRA and the community and start plowing ahead towards implementing the great work on the CWPP that we're all involved in and got pushed forward for us. So happy to be here and happy to meet all of you.
Well, am I correct? You're headed to Glacier View this weekend?
Yes.
So if you recall, we talk about the air curtain burner a lot. We're getting this thing that we're gonna start burning some paint off of it. So it is something that is deployable. So Tyler's gonna go out there and kind of oversee and watch them operate out at Glacier View, and then it'll come back home and start working throughout the canyon with us. And all of that is fully funded. We currently have $170,000 through grants that are sitting there that need to be activated. So we're excited to get this going. We can't get it going fast enough, but Tyler's taken the initiative to go out there in Glacier View and oversee that operation as well. So thank you. So couldn't have said it faster. This is the thing that we've been waiting to activate. So we're excited to get it moving. I'll go into a little bit more about its deployment, because we have a number of deployments lined up and ready to go that he'll lead. You've seen this picture before, but I want you to take note of the bottom section, the Hart family, a second donation. These folks are absolutely incredible. We came up too shy in our AED request, and Mrs. Hart reached out to me and said, I'll make it happen. So we will get 2 additional AEDs. She was so flabbergasted by the article in the paper and the interaction amongst our firefighters that she just can't say thanks enough. So her and her husband are going to give us 2 more AEDs. I'll remind you, those go on staff vehicles. That way, anything labeled with an LFRA logo or name will have a AED on board. So pretty exciting. The next one, this is our second round of leadership leveling. I apologize, you can't see it at the top through the chamber. They go around to the various city departments and ask us to kind of showcase our wares and tell them, the current and future leaders of our community, a little bit about their LFRA. Well, we took advantage of the opportunity of having the NFSA, the National Fire Sprinkler Association, in town. They were actually in South Adams, reached out to them, and Shane Ray, who is the president of the National Fire Sprinkler Association, made this happen. This is a significant lift for them to bring 2 trailers up to us, fully furnished for this demonstration. So our staff did an incredible job of showing our wares, our apparatus, all of the various things that we do, and then we complemented it with a live burn that just further solidifies the importance of relationships that we have with national and local partners. So this is the class attending. This is kind of the grand finale where they had the live burn. Councilor Mallow was there. We appreciate that. We appreciate you attending, the photos and all the information that you'll share on the importance of residential sprinklers. Maybe I'll put those words in your mouth. So thank you. This is our staff doing the other side of that. You see Chief Glass and a couple of others just doing the various discussions on our apparatus, our unique forms of firefighting that look out for the welfare of our residents. So thanks to the staff who did a fantastic job, Chief Ward, for helping pull that together with January as well. This is one I haven't done, but I think it's important to do this. I want to do this more often is LFRA in the news. Obviously, we were featured in the Herald on two separate occasions. I will say one of them created some stir amongst the various city departments. And I think it's important to note that LFRA didn't seek this article. We simply told the story of what was going on. So I just want to be very transparent in that because there's a lot of conversation about LFRA right now and some of the things that we are doing, most notably with the wildfire program and some of the other hires that have been afforded to us through the contributions of the rural district. But I think it's important that people understand that the stories that are out there, we contribute to those. We don't necessarily solicit those. The story about Tyler, I was incredibly happy they reached out. They were looking for a story, and I don't think there's a better story to put out there about the LFRA and the extended effort that we're putting forth not to be the next Marshall Fire. So I was happy. He did a fantastic job. He didn't promise the world, but he did a great job of promoting LFRA and the new program we have. So I covered a couple of these things. I'll just pick up on item number 3, and I'm going to do a real quick switch of PowerPoints here. I'm going to switch to second PowerPoint. And this has been a long time coming. I understand this started, Paul, you had asked for this in October, and we had multiple conversations about the employee engagement survey, 360 survey, and so forth. The reason it is not in your packet is because the results came the day after the packet was distributed. So I'm going to do two things. Number one, I'm going to give you the survey, the results from that survey, and then I'm going to do a couple of highlights for you as well. Now, acknowledging that there's staff in the room and staff online. There's a couple of things. Obviously, the role of the fire chief, I take every aspect of my job to be extremely important, but one of the things that I weigh very high is the sworn duty that I have to protect our community, and equally such to protect our members. This survey was done in an anonymous fashion. I have a responsibility to keep anonymity of our employees at the top of the priority list. So what I have shared with the board, and I will share with our members, is the survey with no filled in comments. So there are no comments directly from the employees. And it's critical that that's not included because there is absolutely the ability to potentially identify somebody. And the other side of that is there is the ability for someone to say something about somebody, and that's only one side of the story. So I have that information as the fire chief, and I am responsible for those employees. So your efforts and your request for information has been delivered to the appropriate party, and I will act accordingly. So I will share this with you and go through the results of that survey through 3 different slides and then address any questions that you might have. So basically, here's the premise, or here's the overall findings of this. This is on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the most favorable. Obviously, anything in the brightest of green is the highest score you can. I do take great pride, and I will say this as part of the executive staff and this organization as a whole, you see no red, so that's incredibly encouraging. Now, what's going well? If you look at this, when you talk about employee satisfaction, a 96% rating, as folks saying they are proud to be part of the LFRA. I believe in the LFRA mission is equally such, sitting 96%. I'm compensated fairly for what I do. I think the board can take encouragement in that 93% rating there. I have the necessary skills to resolve conflicts at work, 91%. I understand my work is connected to the LFRA strategic plan at 90%. The fire chief keeps members informed about organizational matters, 90%. Understandably, I have work to do. There's 10% missing in that equation. I receive regular updates from leadership about things going on throughout LFRA that affect my work, 90%. LFRA is a great place to work, 88%. So fire chief's leadership is moving LFRA in a positive beneficial direction, 88%. 87% at the mission statement fully captures our values. 87% civilian, non-sworn employees are appreciated. Encompasses the rest of the staff, not just the operational staff. And 87% LFRA benefits in place that support my overall well-being. Having said that, I take great pride in that. Understandably, we have work to do. So here's the areas where, obviously, additional attention is necessary. And I think with any organization, I would be remiss if I turned my eye to this. It is very informative. The changes instituted in the overtime policy in 2023 have resulted in more reasonable number of extra hours for me. That is by far our lowest rating. I am not shocked by this. This is not news to me. If I could further refine the overtime policy, I would, but we have constraints and we are working on those. I should also tell you that our entire department contributed to that. That wasn't an administrative effort. It was a collective effort, but we have work to do to find that general satisfaction. 51%, I speak my mind without fear of negative consequences. I will say it in front of this board and I say it to every one of our members, and I think they know it well, that any negative consequences towards someone speaking out and trying to be constructively criticize this organization to move us forward. Anybody that frowns upon that, I have an issue with it, and I will take corrective action there. And I don't say that as a heavy hand. I think that's my responsibility. 54%, I do not experience resistance when suggested new ideas for improving our organization. Again, that question's reversed. Okay, so 54% are saying, hey, they do experience resistance. So obviously that is a red flag, and that's absolutely something that I need to address and work on. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming from me. It's anywhere within the organization. The Level Fire Rescue Authority Board acts in the organization's best interest, 65%. Promotions are based on what you know, how you perform your assigned duties rather than whom you know, 65%. Now, that's an alarming one. Okay, and I will tell you, one of the first things that I did coming into this organization was to contract our promotional exams, to take out the subjectivity of our promotional process. The only interaction that our employees have comes at the executive level where we start doing the interview process. There has to be obviously some degree of subjectivity there, but the screening process is done through a third-party assessment process for most ranks, not all. The engineer rank is not included in that. But the point is we have taken monumental strides forward to make sure that we take out any subjectivity that we possibly can. Obviously, work still needs to be done. The Loveland Rural Fire Protection Board acts in the organization's best interest, 69%. I can go to a supervisor other than my own regarding concerns that may violate LFRA policy without fear, 70%. Equitable training opportunities are provided based on position and assignment, 71%. This one caught me off guard, and I get a report from Chief Ward through Chief Glass on a regular basis. We don't turn down a lot of training. If there's anybody in this room that advocates training, it's this guy. In fact, if I tell people to hide money in the budget, hide it in training, because I don't cut training budgets. I believe you have one opportunity to develop people in the course of their career. You don't cut that. So that's one that I'm curious about. We don't cut a lot of training. If we cut training, it's because there is a very specific reason for somebody not to go. Whether it be additional overtime or something of that nature. Those who are in supervisory positions at LFRA do a good job, 71%. Equitable opportunities for promotion are provided to qualified employees, 73%. And then lastly, 73%, I believe the results of this survey will be used constructively by leadership. Now, I will tell you, with the presence of staff in the room, there's only 2 people in this entire organization that have seen this survey, myself and HR. So if any information is out there, it's either out there on mine or Andrea. And if it gets out there and I didn't say it, I'm responsible for Andrea. So it's pretty simple. So that's, yeah.
And this might be an unfair question for you, but bringing that back up, what 3 of those do you feel like need the most attention?
I think when you start talking about, I can speak my mind without fear. resistance within the organization. I would say those two. And, you know, I always question when I believe the results of this survey. I guess I would throw those just very
No, I get
quick.
it, I get it.
To me, this identifies there's a bottleneck in the system, and I respect that. And I will work to clear that bottleneck. But at the same time, and again, I keep referring to the crew that's here. I don't want to point you out because you're here. I appreciate you being here, but I go out to the stations and I do a state of the department. I do it now via video, and then I follow up asking for feedback. And I hope I've established myself as trustworthy enough and open enough that employees start to feel more comfortable, even though I am the fire chief and there's always that semi-paramilitary feeling. The reality is I want people to feel like they can pull me aside and ask me questions or have conversations. I can tell you, if anybody is telling me that there is resistance in the system, I'll act accordingly. Not with a heavy hand, but I'll act accordingly. I think that's what the system's designed to do. So,
And what percentage of our sworn staff actually took the survey, please?
so right there, every question.
This is the first time I've seen this.
114, right? Under every question, it shows 114 respondents, which I had shared with the chairman yesterday, 94. We had 94 physical write-in comments. So this, I literally received this last night. 114 respondents. So that is an incredible response. There were 2 volunteers to my knowledge. So if you throw in every single volunteer and every single staff member, that's 135. Now, I'm confident all the volunteers did not respond to it, but there were 2 comments in here about volunteer issues, so I suspect 2 volunteers responded.
Is one of the questions I might, is there a copy of this that you could compare that these are the average answers? You know what I'm getting at, is these are what you'd expect to see. You're never gonna make 100% of people happy, I get that. But is there kind of an average fire department authority, and this is what you'd structurally usually get from those answers? Is there anything compared?
I mean, I think that's the natural question that the chairman and I had this conversation yesterday, you know. What do you call a doctor at 71%? Or what do you call somebody who got 71% on their medical boards? Do you call them doctor? I mean, pass fail. To me, I want them all to be 100%, but I think we all acknowledge there's always room for improvement. But to look at this, a 48 question assessment of this organization, and I would go to here, I'd challenge any city or any department within this city to reflect this. I would say it at the council level, I would say it at the board level, I would say it at the private sector level. That's pretty damn good.
Sure.
But not to be arrogant, there's always room for improvement.
So it's fair to say, Chief, that your staff has not seen this either then? This is
I
it,
have seen
this is it,
I have seen it.
so there's no debrief yet, there's nothing that's been done?
No, in fact, that's what I shared with this crew. And this is not the way I would normally do it, but this is the timing and the urgency that you have asked. Anything that goes out should go out to them first, is my personal feeling. But because of the urgency and the sensitivity of this, I think this would be appropriate for them.
Okay.
So
Thank
now the debrief to them, okay, they will get that. But again, their anonymity will be maintained throughout it. So they won't see any of the written in comments. Those are from me, and I'll act accordingly. Anybody else?
I have a question for Rod. From a city perspective, what are your thoughts? I mean, are these in line with the city, and are there any red flags in your mind?
You know, since this is the first time I've got to take a look at it too. But as a first blush, I would say that this isn't out of the norm. I think that these are certainly, we have certain departments that have really high numbers, others don't. We, you know, with the city, we have 1,000 employees, so a much larger organization. Much more, you know, LFRA is very specialized, we're very broad, if you will, but you know, at first blush, you have a, you know, everybody has opportunities to get better. But on the other piece is that I think you have, from this feedback, you have a very solid organization. You have opportunities to get better, as everyone does. But from that red flag, the only thing I would add is that we have benchmarks with ours. We have benchmarks that says, okay, similar sized cities, those kinds of things that we have in comparison. I'm not sure what, to your point, right, benchmarking, to who are we comparing ourselves to, kind of thing. I'm not whether in this space where there's an opportunities to do those kinds of things. But that was the only thing to pull on that string about benchmarking. Who are you comparing yourself to, kind of piece. So that's.
So fair point, and we don't do that through a survey process, because the survey would have to mirror each other. We do that through the accreditation process. We were in the top 1% in the world. So again, I'm not bragging, or I am bragging, I'm bragging on our organization.
How does the accreditation tie that together from the chief? I'm missing the point. I understand the accreditation.
You want to compare yourself to like-sized organizations or organizations throughout the world, that's what the accreditation process.
Right, I get that part, but how does that tie to this survey?
Well, he was saying that we have benchmarks. Our benchmark is the accreditation process through the
But
board of
that,
governors.
is that a personnel thing though? Is that also?
It goes into.
So it goes
personnel.
into
Do you
these
have
kind of
it?
questions?
Yeah, do you have the appropriate promotion process? I mean, it goes to do that.
My comments, thanks for the question.
No, thank you. Mayor, comment?
I would pay attention to the ones where you have a lot of skipped, where people chose not to answer. I would kind of do some analysis of that.
Fair point.
Councilor Mello?
Along the same lines. Wasn't a huge number that skipped. Could have been just by accident, I don't know, it could be real, but Mayor's right.
If I could, the fact that we got 94 write-in comments, some of them multiple paragraphs, I was incredibly impressed with that. People were transparent, and you know, one said, if this gets out, they'll know exactly who I am. And you know what? My goal is it doesn't get out, but the fire chief has been informed. No, it was good. It was very good. And I would say this, I didn't take this position on the front end, but I will take this position on the back end. I think this is appropriate to do every single year. And that was a recommendation that was put forth in one of the comments. As a fire chief, I can tell you, I learned something from it. But at the same time, it reiterated some points that are important. So I'm open for it. Very good.
I'd like to share some comments I made with the chief yesterday. And first of all, I throw out kudos to the chief for his high marks there. I mean, 90% of the department's happy with his leadership, and that's exactly what we want to hear. You're not going to hit 100%. Don't beat yourself up. Can you do better? Be tough, but maybe. If there's anything that stood out in my mind that I have a concern of on is people being able to come forward in the organization with concern and not be concerned about retribution or a supervisor being upset with them. And I think this goes way back. This is a culture thing, just something that we have to work on and be mindful and keep telling all employees that their input's valuable, and please trust the organization. And if you don't feel right, work your way up the chain of command. I mean, it needs to be done. And I guess I gotta say, I trust the chief. At some point, if someone's being unfair, it's gonna get to the chief. And as a board, we need to trust the chief. He's gonna take the right actions to make sure the right things have happened, and that person feels comfortable coming forward in the future with a concern. From a business standpoint, generally, we look at 70% in the business world is maybe being a cutoff line where you gotta be really concerned. One of the areas I see in there is both boards. I'm concerned about how the boards are perceiving us. And I would love to hear if there's any written comments on what we as a board can do better, both boards. That would be important to us. I noticed we didn't ask city council, or I missed it in here, how they feel about city council making decisions, just like rural board making decisions too. But anyway, I would be very anxious if we have anything written to have that shared with the board and what we can do, because I think everybody in this board, both boards sincerely cares, but we're not getting that message across based on 65 and 69% survey results. Yeah, so help us, staff. I mean, be honest with us. If we're not doing something right, we need to know too.
Well, I will tell you, they were honest and they shared, and not to use their exact words, part of it was decorum on both sides, the decorum. That this board, city council represents this organization equally, and decorum came out. The treatment of the fire chief, not selfishly, but I'm just telling you, there was a comment about how I've been treated. Now, I don't point that to anybody or any comments. I took this position very willfully. But you also gotta take into consideration their viewpoint and whether they're in person or online, how I'm treated. I'm the organization's leader. And they have to feel that their leader's being treated appropriately.
Emily, if I could ask you, what rules do we need to be mindful of? What can we see and what can we not see as far as a board without violating any laws? And I mean, to us, it's important to get as much information as we can without anybody being identified or violating anybody's rights. But we want to be able to learn from this.
That's a tricky question. Because there is not a strong legal bright line. But what I worry about a lot is the Colorado Open Records Act. And there is case law in this space that says when an organization makes a promise to keep information confidential and then takes steps to do that, right? Backs it up with their actions, including not distributing it to the governing body, then that protects it from other requests that may arise under CORA. What I worry about is if we start distributing too much of those narratives, like anything, what was presented here today is now public record, right? And I'm concerned that if we distribute too many of those narratives, even if it's just to this body and somebody else anywhere, literally anywhere, asks for those to be released under CORA, my arguments as your attorney to say they're not releasable have been weakened. And so my recommendation as somebody who practices a very conservative brand of law is to not release those even to the board. That if you really want to know what the narrative said, have Chief Miller and Andrea, who are the only people who've seen them.
Chief Miller.
Chief Miller, I'm sorry, Chief Sandoval.
Great impression here.
Whoa.
10%.
That was a throwback.
Freudian slip.
Have Chief Sandoval and Andrea, who are the only people who've seen them, prepare a consolidated summary, right? So I've read them, here are the themes.
Yep.
Right, here are the ideas that came out. Sometimes you'll get splits. I've done that before, right? A majority of employees said the following or suggested the following, but a minority of employees really had a different view, right? You can prepare both, but have them prepare an executive summary that protects your individual responses from further disclosure.
Comments from the board?
Chair, with Ms. Powell, I would agree with her. I think you have the opportunity to do some themes, high level themes, if you will. But I would stop there.
Paul, comments?
No, I think your point is well taken, that I'd like to know what your rank and file and your executive staff feels that we can do better as two different boards. I think that's extremely important. 65% isn't cutting it. We've got a lot of work to do there then. And so I would totally agree with you, Jeff, on that. And I'd like to see those, even if they're pared down, as you said, Emily, that's fine. We'll get the gist of it.
Yeah. You just have somebody read them all, synthesize them, spit them back out in a different voice. And that does have the tendency to protect anonymity.
I could tell you with absolute certainty, there's 3 comments.
Okay, so you're one.
Absolutely not. I did not. I did not take it. No, I mean, I'm not trying to avoid work, but there were three comments. And decorum and, respect for the fire chief, were the two. And it was repeated twice in regards to respect for the fire chief.
So 3 comments was all there was.
Yes. Written in comments, and then obviously you see that everybody
Yeah.
responded to the end of them.
Were there areas on here, where you saw a lot of written comments, like 50 people responded or 25, other areas, not just here, but anywhere?
No, I mean, there were, promotions came up, discipline, came up, and I had shared that with you, and, you know, I don't know how you fix discipline, and I, just to be transparent, I posed the question to, the chairman, I said, did you know about the discipline that I issued? No, I said, the system's working. An employee doesn't know about discipline that is imposed on others, and that's the way the system's supposed to work. But that came up a lot, that people are being treated unfairly. Well, if it's leaking out there, it's leaked out by the employee that's receiving the discipline. This staff or anybody imposing discipline is told that it's confidential. That's the way we work. So that will never be cleaned up in its entirety. But where I have an opportunity to be transparent with people, I 100% will do that. I don't think I haven't been, but where I can open up greater transparency, I'm willing to do that. But folks have to understand that discipline is issued and we move on. It should not be broadcast throughout the organization unless a policy is changed or something. And even then, we don't name the policy Kevin Hassler. I'm just saying.
Would you like to defend yourself?
Man, I missed that. Chief, I do have, if I could follow up on one thing. The overtime, I was 35%, right? That's significant. And I understand that's a real tough one for a lot of people and for the authority as a whole. Is there anything that can be done?
Yeah, well, it's premature to say this. So, you know, Fraser was brought into this organization to help us scrutinize. And we went down this path and we opened it up as the executive board and we created a committee to look at overtime, to try to figure out the best methodology to do that. That was a big bucket. We were over budget in overtime. We asked for positions. We weren't afforded the opportunity to get those positions. Those lieutenant rovers that are coming in are going to allow us to help cut back on that. And we can start leaning towards making some changes. But if you couple that with the other critical issue that I see in here, and that's the training one. Right now, we have imposed to reduce overtime. We have imposed on the employee, if they want to go to training outside of something very specific to a requirement of their job. So if they want to take on specialty things, go to FDIC, for example, which is a national conference. I'd love to send everybody. Okay, they have to get trades for that. That's imposes something on the employee, and that's difficult. In years past, we have paid them and covered the overtime. We can't do that in these tight financial times. So that frustration was very loud and clear. It was not new to me. Every promotional candidate, one of which just was promoted, went through. Every one of his competitors that went through, every one of them brought it up as a critical issue in the LFRA, and we know that. And again, I go back to, if I could change that tomorrow, I would, but we gotta have enough dollars to do that.
I get that.
That's a little bit, so the way that that question comes out can really be taken in two separate viewpoints. One viewpoint is I'm not getting enough overtime. And it's funny because 2 years ago, I'm getting way too much overtime, I'm forcing you to be here, so what the perspective is of answering that question, I think is a flaw that I saw after reading.
I kind of saw that could be a possibility
It
too.
could have been a lot more specific, because to the chief's point, we put a committee together that spent an entire year trying to develop what the overtime should look like, mandatory overtime given out. And compared to 2022 to compared where we're at today, and Kevin may know it off the top of his head, is dramatically different, like probably 75% different. So what was being handed out as mandatory overtime is night and day different.
Lower on the scale.
Yeah, way.
Gotta ask.
If you recall, and I shared with this board, I met with the spouses, I met with 21 spouses and significant others complaining about mandatory overtime. So we shifted it. Now, one could say, hey, man, find the middle ground. Well, yeah, we went from one end to the other. But you know, what Frazier will tell you, that we ain't got so many dollars in the pot.
Yeah, and then to try to address the training trades piece, we have got a committee together right now. And the goal is to have that policy drafted come August, but that's also budget driven. So, but we want to have a platform that we can say, hey, when budget isn't impacting us so significantly, this is what it should look like.
Thanks. I know it's a tough one. I just had to ask.
It's a moving target for sure. It's a fair question.
Rod, anything else?
Guess, I think it's a good study. I think it's sound. I think this is really under your watch the first time you've done this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I applaud you for doing that. I think it really gives you some insight into your organization and your teams and those kinds of things. I know that from a cadence standpoint as far how often you do it. I understand what you're saying yearly, but sometimes you want to give yourself some time to let things cook, for lack of a better term, and then survey again, right? So you can see a difference.
Sure.
We certainly, and we do employee engagement surveys at the city, but we don't do them annually. We do one, wait a couple of years, do another one. So you can see if you're moving the needle with what you're trying to do internally. So there's some feedback to consider.
I think it's a great suggestion, and the fact that we do the frontline survey as well. And that was one of the issues that I was up front with the employees, was very simple. We got a lot of requests for feedback coming at you, and it can start to get watered down. So I think that's maybe we offset.
Yeah, so just talk about that with your teams and you'll find the right cadence, but just as an example.
Thank you.
One more, Jeff, on my follow-up. Chief, you just brought it up, the frontline survey. I know it's new because you just got the data, but is there a plan to compare the two to see if there's a common thread, or wow, this is over here and this one's down here? That doesn't make any sense.
Sure. And I can tell you the bottleneck that came out last year in the frontline survey, but we didn't have context.
You're right.
So what they were issued last week, we sent out what we called a cheat sheet. So it gives context to the question. So when it says senior leader, it's defined as the fire chief. When it says supervisor, it means your supervisor, not a battalion chief if you're a firefighter. So we created context. Now, what's going to be interesting is side by side, 2022 and 2023 and 2024 are not necessarily going to be mirror images or opportunities to compare 2024 and 2025, because both will have context, will be comparable. But certainly any data that we get in through these surveys, I want to sit down and do a side by side as best we can. Makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Mayor?
No.
I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, Chief, thank
All
you.
right, sorry, I was long-winded.
You're doing good.
Okay, just real quickly, the hiring process, obviously, you met Tyler, seasonal mitigation crew closes Friday. So he will be working on that. 27 applicants today.
Yes.
Keeping in mind, we are very, very late in the season, getting this out, but, I'm totally confident what Tyler will pull off with that, seasonal crew. Accreditation manager, that position is, I may have shared earlier, we did offer that position. We're actually going to repost that position, not as a accreditation manager. I think we were a little bit short-sighted on that. It'll focus more on data analytics and research, but obviously it will encompass accreditation as well. So we're going to repost that. We did offer the position that the individual turned us down. I will tell you, we offered it to what I would describe, my words, a rock star. But I think if we have the opportunity to repost this as a fire management analyst, we can open that field and, land a rock star.
Chief, on that particular position, what percentage, I'm just curious, is an accreditation function and what is the other function, just percentage wise?
It's a great question. I mean, accreditation, I would say probably is 50% because it's all encompassing of the organization, maybe a little bit greater than that. The analytics, Chief Smith needs them, Chief Ward needs them, Frazier would need analytics, the council, this board would need it. And I just don't think we've put enough emphasis on that in our previous posting. And the research side of it, we have projects come up all the time that we should be doing some form of formal research on that we need somebody to be able to
So you can get more mileage out of the position.
yeah, I think diversifying it, but high emphasis on research and analytics is. Cool. I'll wrap up here and then turn it over to Chief Ward here. All right, the air curtain, air curtain burner deployment, just a reminder, Tyler's working on Pinewood Reservoir, Waltonia, Storm Mountain and Namaco Hills. Those are our 4 priorities, all of which fall directly in line with the CWPP, and the Namaco Hills was one that was brought to our attention. That's a pretty extreme risk right here, very close, as opposed to what we always start to look at and say, it's distant, it's up on the mountain. Well, Namaco Hills is not on the mountain, so.
Chief, I'm sorry to ask some question. So Tyler, maybe this is a better question for you. How many slash piles can you process a day with that particular unit? And I know it depends the size of the pile, but I mean, how many cubic yards of debris can you process in a 12-hour period?
So the manual is about a ton an hour. We're kind of playing with that as the folks are starting to get it out in the field and see real fuel go into it. Initially, it's a little bit less, and then as it gets hotter and builds heat, starts to get cranking, it'll actually chew up a little bit more, and then winds down at the end. So we're hoping to have a little bit better of a gauge on what that looks like, but I think the average right now is pretty close with what the book says of a ton an hour.
Thank you.
So to that point, I know what you're gonna say, what's a ton an hour? But to Tyler's point, Namaco Hills would be one where our air curtain burner would probably serve well. You start getting up to the larger fuel loads, this is where relationships matter. The state has one, and we're already working on a partnership that we could deploy both in conjunction with their staff. So theirs is larger than ours.
Thank you.
All right, a couple of months ago, we talked about the fire inspectors in the community safety division, so. This month I wanted to just highlight the plan reviewer, so the 2 pictures on the left is Ingrid, she's sitting in this room during development review process. Ingrid hates having her picture taken, so Carrie took that through the glass as she walked by. She just does not like her picture taken, so we're lucky to get that one photo. And then David on the right. Ingrid mostly specializes in reviewing the plans for the overall development, so the access, where the fire department connection is, the hydrants, things like that. And then David is more specialized in reviewing the fire protection system, so they have the right sprinkler heads and where the sprinkler heads are, and so they kind of tag team those projects. In 2023, they did 1,260 development reviews and fire systems 328. Terry said that was down just slightly from 2022, but very comparable numbers for the 2 years. That's FRFC Academy. Sorry, you can't see the top there, the title. It's FRFC Academy. That was Ladders Week. That's probably 3 weeks old now at this point. And reminder, they graduate on May 30th. LFRA is down to 2 recruits. We started with 3, we're down to 2 at this point. Our battalion chief vehicle was featured by Blue Card Command. That's where our command certification comes from in their training program. Every week they send out a newsletter, and they call it Buggy of the Week, and it's our command vehicle was featured last week in their newsletter. That's Lieutenant Dedecker flying a drone with his back to us there at an apartment fire. Tim, you wanna take that one? You threw it in my.
So, this past, month was our quarterly check rescue training down at our training center, so just got some nice photos that were posted on Facebook. Each shift went through and did that training.
Tim, you can help me with this one. This is a little bit about our drone program. Lieutenant Dedecker, that's the training lieutenant, manages the program. We have several pilots, including most of the VCs. Tim's a pilot. And the picture on top left is from a rescue that the crews made where they had to carry a victim out. We're able to fly the drone over and we're able to locate the victim a lot of times ahead of the teams that are walking in. I know Tim's used it at night to try and light up the trail for the crews bringing the victim out. Bottom on the left was a traffic accident. I believe it was 2 weeks ago now. It was a fatal traffic accident. Lieutenant Dedecker flew the drone, helped Colorado State Patrol with the investigation on that. Upper right is thermal imaging video, and that's from Leadership Loveland when we did the sprinkler trailer burn. And that was a pretty cool photo. And the bottom with the 3 apparatus was from Leadership Loveland as well when Lieutenant Dedecker was flying it. We're trying our best to get the drone in the air more and more on incidents because it does provide valuable information back to the incident commander. We're just limited in getting somebody there to get it up, get it flying, but I think we're doing much better than we were before. Tim's been involved in it for a long time. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, it's just really trying to get the people to the scene, and get the aircraft up. We keep one on the China 41 vehicle all the time, and there's a couple scattered out, system. Lieutenant Dedecker managing, but yeah, we have people in the program right now that are, getting their license. I think Gina's our most current one that got her 107 license, so it's our plan, just keep on adding.
How long does it take you to deploy it, from the time you get on
I mean,
scene?
it's like maybe 2 or 3, I mean,
Oh, wow.
it's pretty quick.
We have one in the command vehicle and Dedecker carries one in the training vehicle. Is that it?
There's another one at the training, but it's picture quality, it's just older technology, it's about 6 years old, I think. And then our original drone that we bought with LPD is down there, which we occasionally fly, but apparently Dedecker almost crashed it.
I was gonna ask how many drones you have, but you just named it.
We have, the one that's on the command vehicle is almost recent, it's only about a year and a half old or something like that, but that's the other challenge, the technology changes so quickly. So trying to stay up with that, and of course, the cost of things keep rising.
Some facilities things, the top one, the Joint Logistics Center. We met with Berthoud and Front Range about day 2, I think it was, of Jim's time here with us, and threw him into that. But we also pulled Fraser in because I think we're at a point as we start moving forward. We got to figure out some of the financial admin stuff to help build anything we do. So we brought Fraser into that group as well. Really the next step is Front Range has that warehouse, or had that warehouse packed completely full because of their remodel at Station 1. They're digging that out now, so we can really see what kind of space is left. Marcus said it's pretty tight down there. We may do something where they store an antique engine in there. We may move that to our training center and house it in what was our warehouse, and to free up some space. So we're looking at just ideas of trying to get that space maximized the best we can. Another thing we're trying to do is get me out of the way now that Mark's got some help, and really get Mark and Lieutenant Convillo from Front Range, and then Battalion Chief Lynchmith from Berthoud to really work on the strategic part of that and at their level, because they're in logistics every day. It's just something I play in just a little bit. They really know the system they want to build, and so get them to take it from there. So the short answer is it's moving forward. We're still working on it. I think it's great that we get Fraser involved in it because he can help us a lot from you can't do that without an IGA. We got to figure this out financially before you move forward and start doing these type of purchases and stuff. So The one thing that we are doing right now, and it's not as much logistics related, but it's more IT related, is we are doing a research and development project right now that's joint with other departments, similar to what we did with thermal imagers and air packs in the past. This one just happens to be the records management system, and Berthoud had just switched, so they're not involved in it, but Front Range and Greeley Fire and LFRA are doing that together. That's where a lot of our staff is today. And then the bottom one, the training center enhancements, the picture, that's for our submittals to the city. And all of those blanks on the right need signatures, and we have signatures in all those blanks.
All right.
Now, so that's the big thing. We're through that process, and now it's really to Fraser's step in getting things lined up so we can do the actual bid process. So made some progress there, got those signatures, so we're moving forward.
If I could chime in on the first part, the Joint Logistics Center, Rod, this is for you, because I don't think you were privy to this, very similar to the city. We have, our logistics, we're actually working outside of our organization. So we're trying to mirror equipment inventory with other agencies. So we kind of adopt a Costco model. We buy in bulk and we get better rates. So we have been working on that. What Chief Ward is referring to is the joint warehouse approach with those other entities. And there are other entities, meaning Windsor Sevens, that has expressed interest in potentially doing it. And we've led that charge from the start. Why is this important? I think Mayor, Counselor, you guys might remember this picture. From the time that I showed you this in preparation for this budget, each set of turnout gear has gone up $6,108. So if you think about that, we got over 100 firefighters that have to be equipped with 2 sets. That's over $1 million. And that's from the time that I presented our budget to you to today. And that's not a decision of a fire chief. That is welcome to the American Fire Service.
One of the accomplishments we have made with gear specifically is LFRA, Berthoud, and Front Range have the same spec of our gear. The manufacturer, the dealer we work with basically took that spec and made it the Colorado spec. And so all the departments that order that same gear were all getting a discount because it's considered all one type of order. So it's been pretty successful, and I think the great thing is that the spec really came from us. Bertha does something funny, like putting yellow stripes on theirs instead of the orange like it's supposed to be. They're the same.
Could I ask a question on that, Chief, or actually it's both of you? So the bunker gear, obviously very expensive. How long does it last? It doesn't last good.
It's got a 10-year life cycle, but certainly it could deteriorate before that. So that's the other side. We self-inspect our turnout gear. I'm advocating for a third-party inspection just because we need somebody who does it on a regular basis. The other thing is looking how we clean it. Is there a better methodology to cleaning it that could be more effective, but help us reduce costs as well?
But it's a recurring cost, not just obviously, right?
Yeah. It's just ironic, though. I mean, I received this from the state, and to think that from budget presentation to today, one set of turnout gear went up $6,100. Turnout gear wasn't even $6,100 in years past. I shouldn't say turnout gear, to equip a firefighter. The entire firefighter is $6,100 per fire. Just, it's great. It's a different world.
In the past, we've had enough gear in the warehouse that when we bring a new firefighter on, we could get them equipped with one set and order a brand new set. So they had their 2 sets, and then they would be offset in their replacement. We've gone through a period of time where we didn't have a back stock of gear, so we were having to buy 2 up front. And we're hoping that as we continue to build this warehouse, that we can have a joint or combined set or stock of bunker gear between the 3 agencies and be able to issue new firefighters a set of gear, and whether they can keep that and that be their second set of gear, or in a lot of cases, at the end of academy, that gear is trashed and not able to be reused. It's destroyed just from all the crawling and live fire stuff they do. So working together to try and build that cash and have a better plan for that cost. Some apparatus stuff last week, Captain Agent Corey from Fleet and Engineer Foncannon flew to Columbus, Ohio to do the pre-construction meeting on the tower. And so they go through the specs line by line. It was a 2-day event to get through that, but they get everything set that they want or we want on that tower. So they got through that. Tomorrow is the pre-construction for just the cabin chassis portions for the engine and the rescue up at SVI. And then that last box, you probably can't read that real well. That's just a copy of an email, but it's in there to remind me. That's an email from Lieutenant Engelhardt at the training center to LFRA's operations staff that engine 59, which is our training engine, it's 21 years old at this point. Leadership Loveland, we used it. When they went to put it away, it wouldn't come out of pump gear. And so they had to call Fleet, they got it back, but the pump isn't functional right now and it's still being worked on. The thing I just wanted to say is thank you, because prior to 2010, when Chief Murawski really started working with us on getting the apparatus replacement plan in place, that engine that's 21, 22 years old would be the reserve engines that we were working on in the street. And we would have things like that happen to us. As a battalion chief, I was on a fire where an engine wouldn't go into pump at a structure fire and it was first due.
Minor issue, right?
Yeah, and so we've come a long way with that apparatus replacement plan and the money that the city and the rural put forward for the rescue and the engine. That's really appreciated and hopefully keep us away from some of those things that we've had, in the past before we had a replacement plan. So thank you. That was the reminder. Second reminder is don't forget Friday, if you're going to SBI for the tour. If you can be here just before 1:30, we'll load up and be at SBI by 2 o'clock.
And that truck that he's talking about is still 30 months out.
That was my question. That's
Nowhere near.
We're starting to shrink though.
Yeah.
They opened a new plant at Sutphen and which is really starting to help their production. I don't think it's gonna go from 3 years to 2 years, but we may cut a few months off of it. It's pretty cool. January sent me so many cool pictures this time of different events. This one was the best, I thought. So I put this one up there. I don't even know what the event was called. It was at one of the elementary schools, but Melissa, one of our engineers up at Station 5, I just thought that was a great photo of her with one of the kiddos in our community.
Jesus, go ahead with your report.
That's okay. I do have a question, and one of our constituents asked me this question. Are all new builds on homes, residential homes, are they required to have sprinklers?
When we took it out of the code, it's in the code, but it's been taken.
And size and location is where it applies, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain areas where we have limited water that would be the alternative, would be to offer residential sprinklers. The complication with that is we talk about affordable housing, and you try to balance it too. Where that gets even more complex is some of those people who you're trying to get into affordable housing are the ones that are in most need of additional protection.
The answer is no, then.
Yes.
Okay, really. Go back one slide.
Just one thing to mention is we can brag about community risk reduction, fire prevention efforts, January, and everything she does because of this slide for this month. So,
You taking that on your own?
Pretty good, Greg.
Yeah, wow. Humility, Greg.
I said January.
Oh, all right. Good.
I'm bragging on January. She's the one.
Chief, is there anything you can share with us? Might be an uncomfortable question as far as city and financing and budget and where we might be heading there.
So April 30th is the special council meeting, where we'll have that discussion with council regarding projected budget modification.
Rod, anything you want to share with us or can share with us or?
No, we're, as we talked about before, right now, there's, in the budget, there's a $2 million, reduction for LFRA in the entire budget moving forward. Talked about that before. That's moving forward. We'll be having that conversation. There are our initial conversation, really starting with the 2025 budget for city council starts in earnest on the 30th. Several months before we normally would, but it's, as you know, we're moving into a different normal for us. And we'll have that conversation with city council. It'll be our first of many with city council on this particular topic, I'm sure.
Are we seeing any new numbers that might indicate that future's gonna look better in terms of city revenue or anything, or is everything kind of come in as we thought, or?
Yep, Brian Moldis, my CFO, still says that we're approximately about a $13 million less annually in the general.
No changes.
No change.
Okay. Darn.
You should know that $2 million is a number that's been put forth by finance that will go to council for consideration.
Correct. Yep. You have to start somewhere when you start working on the budget process. There's, as Mayor Marsh and Councilor Mellon know, there's a number of policy points along the way that city council has to make decisions on. So.
Comments, Mayor?
Not at this time.
No, thank you.
I do have a question, but does not relate to the budget.
Oh, okay.
Chief, you said we started out with 3 cadets and now we're 2. We can't share a whole lot of it, but high level, why did we lose?
Didn't meet the standard. LFRA maintains a standard and, that individual didn't make it.
All right, thank you.
Chief, more specifically, he didn't meet the standard that the academy set. So then somebody gets released from the academy to us to
Got here. Thank you.
Jeff, I've got a question, and I was hoping Brian would be here. Let me see. And in his presentation, he did a great job at a rural board meeting the other day or last week. Seems like the other day. Anyway, the question I had was, he did a really great job of describing general fund and where some of the funds come from. The one thing I noticed was he said the other fund, which is maybe it's a capital fund, there's I'm winging this, I think it was $152 million in. So my question comes from, in the general fund, ignorance on my part, I admit that, but so in the general fund, let's say police and fire, there's no money, they have to be completely, we have to take their budget down by 75%. Can that other budget ever be used to supplement your general fund, to augment it, if you will, in the event there's some catastrophic event where you have fire and police and safety having to take some major cuts? And I understand when the money comes from different taxing avenues, that there's reserves on that and it has to be held a specific way. But if you had a catastrophe, are there any laws that say you can borrow from that or you can use that to make public safety whole?
So I'll take that since Brian's not here and I did work on that side of the house. And Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, but going from enterprise funds to general fund is generally restricted
Not
and
permitted.
not permitted.
Under any
You are
circumstance.
permitted to actually fund enterprises up to 10% of their budget from the general fund, but going the opposite way isn't permitted. What you can do, and the city's done this in the past, is you can always take a loan out from an enterprise fund. It's a really bad practice, and in a situation like this, where there's a permanent revenue shortfall, you're never gonna be able to pay that loan back. And so, as far as statutes go, you really can't supplement the general fund.
Yeah, and Fraser, you're on point. on that. One thing of note that the enterprises do pay payment in lieu of taxes back into the general fund. And they do it at about a little over $9 million. So they pay back into the general fund, those enterprises. But just think about them as individual business units, little businesses, if you will. And any kind of thing that we would do, like Fraser's done, any kind of a loan or take resource away from those business units, that can impact rate users. Because they're all fee-based. So if the ratepayers, the monthly ratepayers pay in, but if you start doing that kind of stuff, then the downstream thing is, as an example, you do a loan, the general fund can't pay it back. The business unit needs to have the money, they're gonna have to go to the ratepayers and charge you. So
At approximately 34 cents was their recent upgrade, which interestingly, fire safety tax was 37 cents. I'm just saying.
But I
Not
appreciate
that I'm following.
clarification. I was just curious if you had a situation where public safety could go down the hill, but you could still have money to paint
It's
boxes.
the one time. Yeah, it's fair enough.
Thanks, Ross.
I appreciate the question, yeah.
Just saying.
We didn't have any significant events last month, though.
There you go. Do you have any type of a legal report, Emma?
I do not.
Okay, no need for an executive session. Any other business anybody'd like to bring forward? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.